This episode is brought to you by Santos Threads. Make sure to visit Santos-Threads for the latest and greatest in men's and women's Latino urban-inspired streetwear. Visit SANTOS-THREADS.com. Hey, you are now listening to the Santos Says podcast, episode number 34. Once again, back for more. Make sure you guys follow me on social media, of course, Instagram, Santos Thread Shop, as well as on TikTok, Santos Thread Shop. And of course, back at you. Make sure you guys, if you guys are watching on the YouTube, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share the video, the whole thing. Back with you guys once more. Happy to be here. Yours truly, Santos, proud owner of Santos Threads, and of course, back here for another episode. My guest today is a singer. She's an artist. She's a true vocalist. I mean, I was able to stumble across her on social media, and quite frankly, I was impressed with her ability to not only sing, but also the presentation of how she presents herself. And so as far as the artist, how she is, right? You could tell there was talent there. And I certainly, I was impressed with the music I heard. And so she's going to be joining me on this episode. She goes by the name of Amaya Santos. And of course, right? Santos. Had to bring her on. So long lost family member, bringing her on. And happy she's going to be having I will be having the privilege of having her join me. And we're going to talk about her. We're going to talk about her career. We'll talk a little bit about what she's up to these days, some of her inspirations, the whole thing. Just have a great conversation and have a good one. So that's what we're going to do. And without further ado, she's here. And I'd like to welcome to the show my guest on here, of course, Amaya Santos.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Good. So I was talking about how I stumbled across you. I stumbled across your work on social media, and of course, you always have so many artists and influencers and business people, right? Entrepreneurs all over social media. So you get flooded. Literally, your timeline gets flooded with stuff. So since I, given what I'm doing right here with social media and of course with the podcast. When I see artists and I see certain figureheads, I want to take a look to see what it is they're about, right? Because you never know when you have someone who may be a good guest for the show. So I stumbled across your music, and I heard your song Carousel, which we will get into. But before we get to that, let's talk about you. I guess let's just start with you. What is your So just kind of give us some background as far as where you come from and who is Amaya Santos.
Okay. I have been singing since I can remember, literally. But I've always been kind of shy. So I was singing like in school choir, church, and music is always something I really, really wanted to do, but it just looked so like far away or like unmanageable for me. And then when the pandemic hit, I was just like, the one thing I wish I always did as when the world was staying still was like, I wish I would have just done music. And so that's when I really decided, I'm going to go for it. If other people can do it, I can do it. And I had never written. I've always been singing. And I decided, I'm going to learn how to write music. I'm going to learn how to produce it. I'm going to learn how to record it. I'm going to learn everything about it. And that's what I did. I started recording and I released my first song last year in June, and I haven't stopped since. I've been writing nonstop, creating new music, and I love it. I've been performing, and my first performance was just kind of like when I went on stage, I was nervous, I was shy, but after I did it, I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. Like, it just was a different experience. I just knew, I'm like, yeah, this is what I have to do, So, yeah.
Absolutely. It's almost like you feel that sense of fulfillment. It's a sense of calling, and you found out, right, that you're a natural. I'm sure to some degree, right? Humbly, of course, you felt like, hey, I'm pretty good, right? So um I guess what I want to know is because oftentimes, you know how when we're kids, we always have dreams of it seems like we always dream about either being an artist, a singer, um, a musician, an athlete, right? Something like that, based on whatever we see on
Mhm.
TV or in media. And so I guess I'm curious, was there ever a time when you were a child, um, when, if any time as a child, did it come to you in your head when you're saying, hey, that you saw someone that really influenced you? So I guess let me know, were there people in your life that influenced you, that part, and also like at what point was it for you that you felt, oh, I could sing or I want to sing?
I mean, I have like pictures of me being like 2 year old and videos that my dad bought me like a boombox before I could even walk or talk properly. And there was this song, in Spanish song, like a merengue, and it was called Flaca. I didn't know the words, but I would
Waka,
just sit,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I would sit there and I would play my boombox and like dance and sing. And I think that's as early as I can remember it, like really being something that I loved as far as music. And then growing up, I grew up in Florida, but for the summer, my mom would always bring us to New York and I would stay with my grandmother. And my cousins would come and I would plan out these whole like shows where I would sing and they would dance. And when my parents would come pick us up, then we would like charge them for a show. And so, yeah, like from a young age, I always knew it was something that I really loved and wanted to do. It just growing up, my dad, he was like very much into like get your education and do something. Like he wanted me to be a doctor, and he was like school's so important, and he just kind of implanted that in me. And so music was not like so much an option for me. I just felt like I need to get my education, I need to have a degree and have all of that. And so kind of just it was just like a dream that I never got to like fully fulfill because I was just always so stuck on that. You have to get your education. It's really important, which I'm glad I did. But yeah, I since a young age I can remember listening to like Juan Luis Guerra, who I love, Lauryn Hill, Mariah Carey were a lot of big influences that I would go home and just like sing in my room. So
Well, that's awesome. And again, when you now, full disclosure, obviously you're Latina, right? So tell the audience what your background is.
yeah, I'm Latina. My dad was Dominican and my mom is from El Salvador. So a little bit of a mix there.
Great mix. That's a good
Yeah.
mix. Yes, yes, definitely, definitely. And again, with that, you get. It sounds like your father had a really strong influence in your life, as you mentioned a couple merengue songs. You
Oh
mentioned some
yeah.
merengue, so right, Flaca was a merengue,
Yeah.
the merengue, and yeah. So I guess like who are some of those artists that you would listen to? Because it's funny, all these artists, right? Like obviously you're not. And we'll get into the genres and stuff. Obviously you're with what you do with your music, but I mean all these things kind of like formulate in our brains, in our subconscious. So how did this kind of influence you as far as like having? It seems like that all stuck with you, right? The merengue songs kind of would have an influence. Seems like you got that from your dad.
Yeah, definitely. I think growing up, I would listen to like a lot of Juan Luis Guerra, Fulanito, like that kind of music. And what I love about it in general is like Juan Luis Guerra would always mix like a lot of jazz with merengue. He was always mixing different elements, which is something that I like to take from my own music. That I just like to take things that maybe normally wouldn't be in the same genre and mix them together. I did that with my song Late Night Thoughts, like adding a violin there, but still making it a little bit hip hoppy. Hold Me Down, same thing. It's like kind of like a poppy guitar, but then I put some Spanish in there. So, just mixing different elements and different genres are things that I was listening then and that I still love to do now with like Fulanito, for example, taking like typical merengue and like making it very hip hoppy. So I really love mixing things together and just making it work in my own way.
Yeah, no, I respect that, especially since oftentimes there's like pressure, especially when the artist is trying to find themselves. Me just being a fan of music, obviously, I don't make music, but just understanding that there are so many pressures to kind of come up with that song that's gonna go viral or that's going to catch fire, if you will.
Mhm.
And so I like the fact that you mentioned that there are so many elements that are inspiring for you that are kind of trying to find your sound, right?
Yeah.
And it didn't escape me that you mentioned that you produce some songs. Talk to me about that. Um, you as a producer.
I'm more of a co-producer. I feel like I'm learning like so much in a short amount of time. I'm trying to learn how to play piano. I'm trying to learn all this software, how to record my own music, and it just kind of came from wanting to do things myself, like not having to rely on other people. The producer that I worked with on Carousel, like he's like in a completely different country. We don't speak the same languages, but we communicate through music. I'm like, this is what I want to do, and I'll show him like this is how I want it to sound, or he'll send me like what he worked on, and I will take elements out, and we'll work together that way. Um, and yeah, I'm just trying to learn as much as I can and to be able to express my music and my thoughts and my ideas. It's one of the hardest things, like when you have an idea and you're like, this is what it sounds like in my head, and trying to get it out. And so I think the easiest way is just to kind of start to learn how to do it yourself. And not that I'll fully be like a full producer, but just to be able to also sit with them and say like, this is what I want and this is how I want it done. I think it's very valuable.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of value in that, especially since you're able to understand music better. And I believe that the more, especially in this age of artistic independence, if you will, I think that that is a humongous factor because so many times you see new artists coming out and they're like, oh, well, I got to pay for production. They don't have the money for the budget. They got to pay for studio time. They got to pay for all these things. And the fact that you're able to learn how to produce and listen, you mentioned something about you being a co-producer, but you know what? That's something to aspire to
Definitely.
as you learn. You're gonna become a full-on producer before you know it. You're producing for others. So I'm sure that's a goal in the back of your mind. It's something you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And so you mentioned Carousel. You said Carousel was produced by someone who was who was overseas and
Yeah.
does not speak the language. How were you able to make that work?
We would have like Zoom calls. So with Carousel, I got this idea after speaking to one of my friends, and she's like telling me about her relationship. And I was like in my room, and I just got the we go round and round. I recorded the audio, and I was like, this is what I imagine. I imagine like a slow guitar, and I'm just like playing the like mouthing what I think the guitar would be. And and that's how we started working on it. And I sent him this audio file. I'm like, this is what I want it to sound like, and we develop it together. Like we were just doing Zoom calls, and I would record in my home in my room, and that's how we built the whole song. So I'm really proud of it.
Yeah, no, I mean I heard the song a couple times and I like the what I really liked about it. Well, the song it's a very good song, but what I really liked about it was the concept. I thought the concept was very refreshing, it was unique. At the same time, it's something that all of us can relate to in a certain way, right? Because for those listeners out there, the concept of the song, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because this is how I interpreted it. Um, it's kind of like just being stationary in the same place, like just like it suggests, right? The carousel, the ride, right?
Yeah.
Um, at a theme park, and it's kind of like you're going through the ups and the downs, you're going through everything, but it's just you're still stuck. It's in motion, but you're stuck in the same place, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like where you were going with it as far as like the emotional ups and downs, what happens, and I think we all can kind of relate to that.
Yeah, definitely. That's why at the end I end with like we go nowhere, because you're just going up and down and like going through this roller coaster of emotions, and not just like amorously but also like amicably. Like some of us may have like friends that are like we have one-sided relationships, or people that you should like leave aside and move on from, but you're just like, oh, maybe they'll change, maybe they're a good person, and you don't want to let that go. But at the end of the day, it's just like not the best thing for you. And so that's kind of the whole concept of Carousel.
No, yeah, I loved it. I heard that song. I'm like, man, it's a good song. And the production, as you mentioned, obviously you got that producer to on board to be able to make that. But it reminded me. Now you can correct me if I'm wrong. There were parts of the actual instrumentation, and it sounded like a full-on carousel, like a
Yeah,
like
that
a.
that was also the
Is that
idea.
right? Is that true? Correct? Okay.
Yeah, that was also the idea. Like, I really wanted to start with like one instrument, like very simple, and then we kind of built on it, and then it would come back down and just, yeah, we really wanted it to sound like the whole ups and downs of Carousel. So
It did sound okay. So I was just trying to think if it was just me or if it was
you were right
actually the
on.
thing. It sounded like a character. It did. I was like, oh, this is great. This even sounds like a ride, right? Sounds
Yeah,
like the ride in the theme park. So
yeah.
yeah, I mean that's awesome. And so I want to ask you about some of your because we'll talk right. What are you? We talked about this offline, but what are some of the I mean, how would you identify yourself as far as the genre you sing? Would you identify yourself as an R&B singer, um, soul? How would you categorize? I should say. How would you categorize your
Yeah, I
music?
think I'm a mix. Like, I really love R&B, and that's what I when I came in, I'm like, I'm really gonna do R&B. But just after I started performing, I was like, I really want something that people can dance to, and that's gonna really get the crowd moving. And um, that's when I worked on like "Hold Me Down." It was the middle of summer, and that's a little bit more poppy. So I think I'm like in between R&B and pop, with a little bit of Latin because I also like to mix that into my like pop songs. So yeah, just kind of in between the R&B and pop.
Nice. No, no, that's great. And you mentioned obviously. Look, we know what's going on in the Latin market. I mean, the Latin market and the what you call mainstream English speaking market are more merged than they ever have been. The lines are so blurred, and there are so many opportunities to cross over, right? Cross over and get into the Latin market. What are some of your ideas or some of your thoughts, if any, as far as that in the future? You ever thought about crossing over to the Latin market, Spanish speaking market? And what are the pressures, if any, you may feel as a Latin singer, as a Latin American, American Latina, making music in English?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just kind of like testing the waters, and doing more like a Spanglish thing, with my music, because I really enjoy and love listening to both. Um, and so, like with Hold Me Down, we kind of tested it. I'm also working on another song that will be more Spanish and have a little bit more Spanish from my family's side end. They only listen to Spanish music and to my music. So
Mhm.
they are, of course, are like, when are you going to release more in Spanish? And I love doing it. I think it's very fun to be able to do it, but also to be able to mix it with like the English and to have a little bit of both, for those who are not Spanish speakers, that they can still sing a little bit along, and the rest they can learn.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's always good when you're able to bridge that gap and kind of, because, it's a natural thing. We always want to kind of just, it's almost like we want to please everybody. We don't want to exclude anybody.
Right.
So, and you have that. And then you also have the element of, hey, this is my culture. I want to also, I want to embrace my culture.
Yeah.
Because you don't want, I mean, how many times um, you've seen sometimes there may be that perception of, hey, so and so is a sellout because they're Latino or they're Latina, but they don't want to sing in Spanish. They don't want to acknowledge. I'm not saying that's what you're doing. You know what I mean? But and so like that's the perception, right? I'm sure you've seen that, and that's not necessarily fair either. So
Yeah, definitely.
so who are some of your favorite artists growing up? It could be in any genre, just in general.
I mean, I was obsessed with Mariah Carey growing up. So definitely Mariah Carey, Lauryn Hill, Juan Luis Guerra. I would love growing up. Amy Winehouse were some of my favorites growing up. A little
Right.
mix of everything, yeah.
Yeah, no, Amy Winehouse was such a talented individual. Um, Obviously, very tragic how she wasn't able to stay with us longer, but the music that she made, the way that she was so talented, she did so much in such a small amount of time. Um, Lauren Hill, same thing, for in another what is it in another way, right? Because she kind of made one solo album and just disappeared.
Yeah, sadly, but everyone still listens to it till this day. I think like you can always put on a Lauryn Hill song and just instantly, like any age, people know it.
Yeah, No, I love Lauryn Hill especially as well. What always fascinated me about Lauryn Hill was, because I'm a big time hip hop head myself. I love R&B as well, but I always liked her as well as a rapper. I appreciated her as an MC. Like she could rap and sing equally as good. She
Yeah,
did both well.
yeah, definitely.
But I guess her dropping one LP, I've always said like her just having released one LP kind of added to her mystique in a way. Um, I think if she were to drop an album, I don't know, next week or whatever, people would look into it, but it wouldn't be the same. Like I think this adds to her mystique, the fact that she only released one LP.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. So tell me about what like some of your so I know you mentioned the production part, you mentioned learning how to play instruments. Who would be if you were to I guess who if you were to pick out one artist to work with, like, let's say they're gonna bring you to the studio, you're gonna work with an artist. It could be any artist, past, present, whomever. Who's that one artist that you say, you know what, I think I could work with that artist. We can make beautiful music together.
Oh my gosh, there's so many options. um, I would probably say, I mean, I would say Kanye. I really love his beats. I think as a producer, he's so great.
Kanye. Okay, Kanye.
Yeah.
No, listen, Kanye West is an absolute genius. Now I'm not going to be I'm laughing because I'm not going to be a hypocrite about this because I made a previous podcast episode where I made that, and again, you can chime in and we can talk about it. I
Hmm.
made an episode last year about the on the podcast mentioning how I thought musically Kanye West was not as good as he used to be. That he was actually okay. So I'll say exact. I said basically he was washed up as a producer, as an
Hmm.
artist. Um, and the reason for the harsh criticism is because the expectation is so high. I have such a high. I grew up a huge fan of his, so I feel like he's taken a dive as far as his popularity is at an all time high, but I don't feel like the music, the quality is what it once was. What is your take on his music today? Do you still feel now again the production is different from him as an artist. Him as
Hmm.
an artist, I'm not crazy about him right now. But that's my opinion. What is your take on him right now as an artist? And do you feel he still got it?
I mean, I think that as an artist, you're constantly changing and evolving your sound, right? And as an artist on his level, I think that he's able to experiment with more, with a broad different amount of things. And yeah, do I love his previous production a bit more than I what he's putting out now? 100%. But as a producer, I think that he's always like taking these different chances on things and experimenting with new things, which is what's fascinating about him. I also think that like when he started, he had like something to prove. Now he doesn't, so maybe that's why you feel like it may be a little different. Like he can literally put out anything and people will still be like, oh, it's Kanye, and you're gonna hear it. And I think that happens with like a lot of artists where, you know, they'll put something out, and even if it's not your favorite song, the radio will keep playing it and you'll hear it everywhere. And then at the end of the day, you're just like singing along because you've heard it 20 million times, you know? But I still think he's extremely talented. I just think that he's taking different routes and producing different kinds of music than what he was doing in the past.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. It's kind of like it's almost like a gift and a curse, right? Because the gift is you having this talent and having the longevity. The curse would be they're always going to compare your new work to your old body of work.
Yeah.
So that's part of that's the struggle, or if you
Yeah.
will, the struggle or the dilemma, I should say, with being an artist of his caliber. So yeah, totally. I agree with you there. So what are your I guess I want to know what are your plans now, right? Because I know you've been promoting this single Carousel. You've had other songs that you've made, other music. What are your plans now? Like, what are the plans for Amaya right now? moving forward?
More new music. I've been, I since I started releasing music last June, I just put out singles, and I started to work like on an actual body of work, so an EP, which I'm really excited about. And just to continue to grow, I've been in this industry for a very short amount of time. I'm really proud of how far I've come in this short amount of time. But I want to continue to grow and continue to learn and to continue to evolve, and yeah, just keep pushing and keep putting out new music.
No, definitely. It's good. It's really refreshing to see that because you don't see a ton of female producers. So when you mention that you're working on becoming a producer, obviously you're a vocalist, and you're working on your craft as far as the instruments. That really caught my attention when I was like, all right, and you write your own music too as well, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when I first started, the first producer who I worked with, he's just kind of like, at the time, I was just like, I'm like, not happy, upset about it. But he just told me something that was really valuable and that stuck with me. He's just like, a lot of people can sing, but you need to be different. You have to be able to write. You have to be able to produce. You have to be able to market yourself. You have to be able to do everything, because that's the only way you'll stand out. And he pushed me a lot to like write my own music. Which I'm really grateful for, because I'm like, I don't even know if I can write anything. And once I started, it was just became very easy for me to do it and to put my ideas out there. And the same thing, like with producing things, he'd be like, if you want to record from home, I'll show you how to do it. I'll show you what you need to do. And just because it's that much easier for me to get my ideas out, because once I have an idea, I can't make you understand it unless I'm able to express it in some sort of manner. And so, I'm really grateful for them who have really pushed me to learn, and to, same thing with like trying to learn piano, because they're like, you have to be able to express it musically. You can't just hum everything. Um, so yeah, I've been very lucky to have those people to give me that push to be able to do it and to learn and to grow.
Definitely, definitely. With as far as what you represent, really, because as far as what you represent as a Latina, uh, a singer, an artist, producer, songwriter. I mean, you're adding these different things to your repertoire and all that. How do you view yourself as an example um, to others? As far as like, how serious do you take that? What is that like? What do you view yourself as far as how important is that your image and the example you set?
I mean, I think for me, it's very important with my image to be myself. I think that, when I first started, the reason I never didn't do music before is because I was just like, it was something that seemed so far away, something that I wanted so badly. And now that I started it, I feel like I can't stop. I would be letting myself down. I'd be letting down the people who listen to my music, everyone who's come to my shows, my friends who've been in my music videos. Like, for me, like, I take it very, very seriously, because I've also seen like the people, that DM me and say, I love your new music, or I like your new song, or, you know, like all of those things for me is like, I can't just let myself down. I also can't let down these people. And so it just kind of drives me to continue going, and to, keep going every day, and to try and expand and to grow.
I no, definitely. I really appreciate hearing that because I mean, it's similar for me too. I think we all can relate to that in a to a certain extent, right? Because we all need that as people, as professionals. We all need that positive reinforcement goes a long way. Um, and I think that adds a little more fuel to your engine, if you will, to just kind of power forward and kind of
Yeah,
persevere.
yes, definitely.
Yeah, no doubt. So before we go, I want to ask you because you talked about how you would be interested in doing a crossover in Spanish or kind of like little by little towing into it. So I'm curious, what are some of the other genres? I know you mentioned merengue. You grew up with listening to merengue. Would there be any other genres in Spanish that you would say, hey, I'd like to experiment with this genre? Um,
Yeah, I mean, like growing up, we listened to a lot of bachata, so maybe. But again, like I love mixing genres together. So if I can, figure out a way to do it and still be kind of in the R&B genre, definitely. I really love mixing different sounds together and different elements together. And I think bachata maybe in the future could be something, but we'll see.
There you go. A bachata from Amaya Santos. That would be pretty good right there. You heard it here first. Um, I mean, yeah, and bachata is such a very, what I like about bachata is the line between bachata and R&B as far as subject matter is it's right there. I mean, you can subject matter. You can really, it's very easy to kind of do that. So you may be able to start a whole new genre yourself, right? If you're able to pull that off, and that's great that you have the aspirations to do that.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. So, all right. So before we go, any last words? Anything you wanna plug? Feel free to anything you want to promote.
Yeah, definitely. If you haven't checked out Carousel, please go do so. You can follow me on Instagram at I am Amaya Santos. And I'm also worked on a music video for Carousel that will be releasing in the next 2 weeks, towards the end of the month. So make sure you look on my YouTube and look for that new music video.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you very much for joining me. And of course, we'll plug all your stuff as well in the description on the YouTube video as well as on the audio platforms as well. Amaya Santos, thank you for joining me. I appreciate having you. It was a pleasure. You guys make sure you stream Carousel. Let everyone know also the platforms where they can stream Carousel.
Yeah, all digital platforms, iTunes, Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon, Tidal, all of them, Deezer. Yeah, also if you go on my Instagram, there you can see all the streaming platforms for it.
All right. No, sounds good. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Amaya Santos, everyone. Thank you very much. And look forward to seeing that video as well. And thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye-bye. So that was my guest. I want to give a special thanks to my guest, Amaya Santos. Great story. Interesting story. Just seeing people to have the wherewithal to pursue their dreams. And I really, really, like seeing that when people, because we're all, one lesson we all can learn is that we at times we have hesitations. We're scared to, not scared, but yeah, we may have a little fear to pursue our dreams. We may have some trepidation. There may be some things that prevent us from going all the way with certain things. And so it's always good to see people take that leap of faith to be able to, go for their dreams and pursue their dreams. So great story. Of course, you guys make sure to follow Amaya Santos on Instagram. Check out Carousel and look out for the music video as well for Carousel. And of course, that was episode number 34. Make sure you guys check out Santos-Threads. We got the podcast merch on there. And the spring collection is coming soon, so you guys be on the lookout for that. And of course, as always, don't just say what you mean or mean what you say. Say it with your chest.